I quit caffeine for an entire year. So in this video, I'm going to break down two things. One, how I'm crazy enough to even consider this as an option in the first place, right? I know a lot of you are thinking that. So I'm going to explain exactly why, and it may resonate. And secondly, I'm going to explain the pros and cons and basically how it ended up changing my life. First and foremost, my name is John Mango, and if you are pursuing the best version of yourself, then subscribe below and we'll get there together. Okay, so like I stated, let's start with why I actually decided to quit caffeine. To make a long story short, the reason why I decided to get off caffeine was because essentially I was addicted. And how do you actually know if you're addicted? Step number one, ask yourself this. Do you use the phrases, I can't do X without caffeine, without my coffee, without my pre-workout, without my energy drink? If you say that on a regular basis and it's actually the truth, if you feel like you can't function, you're moody, you don't feel so good, you can't perform best at the gym, you're not doing your best work without this drug, ultimately it is a drug, then guess what? You are addicted. And so I found myself in this position after several years. I started with pre-workout back when I was 17, 16, right? I know the bottle says on it, do not use unless you are above 18 years old. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of rules. Anyways, started with pre-workout, and over the years it was coffee all the time, it was energy drinks, pre-workout, all this stuff stacked together, caffeine pills, etc. I got to a point where it was really taking over in the sense that I was giving up sleep to work more and just using caffeine to fill in the gap, if you will. Obviously, this didn't work. It led me to crashing, and it made me rethink that strategy. On top of that, I started following a lot of business people and a lot of self-development stuff, and noticing that there were people in these spaces doing a lot more work than I was, getting a lot more done than I was, being a lot more productive, working out, all this stuff without any caffeine in some cases. And I thought, well, hey, if I need caffeine and that person doesn't, and they're doing better than me, then I'm being a little bitch. So I decided, all right, I gotta get off this shit. And there was also a period of my life where I was sleeping 4 hours a night, and filling in the gaps with caffeine led me to a near fatal incident, which of course got me to reevaluate things as well, but not so much as the being a little bitch part. That was the main reason I got off of it, let's be clear. So what happened when I got off? I decided to go cold turkey. The first day after quitting caffeine entirely, if you do it cold turkey, you could probably expect to feel the way I did, which was like an absolute train wreck, okay? Waking up groggy, feeling terrible, like went to the gym, worst workout of my life, weak, no energy, literally don't even talk to me at that point. And again, you could probably relate. Don't talk to me until I have my coffee in the morning, right? This is how I felt that next day. I was destroyed. Work day was very unproductive. And this was even more of an eye-opener at the time. Pounding headache, no matter how much water I drank, it was essentially withdrawal effects. And I'll be honest, all that this does, if that happens to you and you experience the same thing, all this should do is in fact open your eyes to the reality that yes, this is a good thing that you're getting off of this, and keep pushing through it. Second day was not the greatest either, but significantly better than the first day after quitting. And by the third day, I was feeling pretty normal. I would say 4, 5, maybe a week later, I was completely back to normal. Now, your results may vary. It may take you longer or less time to feel these withdrawal effects, depending on how much caffeine you are currently consuming on a day-to-day basis. So that was my experience. With that said, what are the positive effects that I noticed from giving it up? And they might surprise you, because the very first one I'll talk about is probably gonna sound like a paradox, and that is invincible energy levels, okay? The key here is invincible, because we start taking caffeine for what reason? More energy, of course. Maybe you're like me at 16, you want to pump a little pre-workout, see what this is like, and suddenly you've unlocked a whole new God mode where you're in the gym for 4 hours cranking it. The only reason you're not going another 4 hours is because you can't move your damn body. You got to go home and rest a little bit, but you're sitting at home resting and your heartbeat's going like this. So you unlocked God mode and you're thinking, this is what I need in my life, right? And then from there, we start using it regularly, and what happens? You don't feel the effects much longer, all the same that you did the first time, because you're getting used to it. Your body is adapting to that drug, and it does so quite rapidly. And what this actually does, over time, at least let's say a month. After a month, if you've been using it regularly, let's say on a daily basis, the effect is definitely not the same, if there's any effect at all. The issue that happens is your natural energy level is actually going to be lower, and your body is now dependent on the caffeine to simply reach its natural level of energy, okay? So you can think of caffeine like borrowing money on a credit card. You're borrowing energy from an exogenous source, okay? So you are going and spending all this extra energy that you don't have, and then you're gonna have to pay back that debt later in the form of a crash. So when you have caffeine, you're all jittery, you're all feeling good, you're all super focused, whatever at first, and you hit a huge crash down the line. Maybe you can relate, maybe this happens to you on the daily. The reason for that is because you are now paying back that energy that you borrowed, again, exogenously, not produced internally, and you're paying that back, and then you pay interest over time. That interest comes in the form of lower baseline energy levels, which again is going to lead to dependence on the drug to even get you to normal. So what happens after we finally wean off of that and we're back to our natural energy state? A few things. One, it's invincible because I no longer need something to perform at anything. Yeah, sometimes I still wake up tired, but I'm going to blast the gym all the same because the energy is the same as it would be otherwise, okay? My energy is not dependent on, and from a mindset perspective, needing this caffeine to work out as hard as I need to. My strength is the same all the time, you know, give or take, depending on how much sleep I got, and all that is important, of course. Assuming those variables are all the same, my energy is invincible. No matter how tired I may feel when I get up, by the time I'm in the gym, I'm crushing it. No matter how tired, this is the second part of the energy, is it was longer lasting. Now, I feel like I can go forever. Of course, by the end of the day, you're starting to get a little bit tired out, especially if it's a long day, right? You've been working a lot, but there's a difference. Back when I was on caffeine, I would be pulling one of these, right? You'd be pulling one of these by the end of the night. I don't pull those anymore. In fact, right now, it's 7 p.m., it's Friday right now, worked about a 12-hour day, blasted a 2.5 mile run earlier, after a 1.5 hour workout, first thing in the morning. I went for an hour-long walk, all this stuff. So it's been a long day. Closed some sales, absolutely crushed it, and here I am blasting this video because again, sometimes even though the energy starts to wean, you feel like you can just go at any moment. Whereas with the caffeine, as the energy plummets, you're spending too much time paying back that energy interest, and so you really are gonna struggle to push through for the rest of the day. Okay, so the first biggest pro, the absolute game changer, is the energy levels and the fact that they are essentially limitless. The second benefit is a big one as well, and that is much better sleep. I'm talking worlds of a difference, okay? What this means is the following. When I wake up, zero grogginess or zero lethargy whatsoever. Now, sometimes when I was on caffeine, this will happen. You wake up and you're feeling like you didn't really rest that well, even if it was a long night of sleep, right? Perhaps you can relate. I don't feel this anymore. Ever since getting off caffeine, I do not feel it. And I basically kept most other variables the same when I started noticing these differences. So the sleep has improved drastically, which of course helps with the energy levels that I mentioned previously. So they go hand in hand and they're self-reflexive, feeding into each other and improving upon one another. So sleep is key. Quality has improved. Even though before I used to drink caffeine first thing in the morning, I still noticed it affected my sleep quality. Okay, the third is no energy crashes. I know I mentioned this previously, but it's worth mentioning in its own point. I do not crash. I do not hit any walls when it comes to my energy. Now, sometimes when you hit this wall, what do? You take more caffeine. Stupid. Instead, now I reach for my water, let's say. This energizes me. I don't know, you just feel so much more focused, okay? The caffeine energy is like a jittery energy. It's not as good as clean, healthy energy. Of course, you gotta make sure you're getting good sleep in this process. If your sleep pattern's way out of whack, if your nutrition's out of whack, I mean, come on. Caffeine, getting off caffeine or on caffeine, you're screwed either way. So get that on point, and then you'll notice these benefits tenfold. Okay, the next benefit is very simple and straightforward. I saved money. Think about it, all the money that you're spending on coffees or pre-workouts, you're not spending anymore. So yeah, it's not a crazy amount. I don't believe I'm gonna save myself to be rich like a lot of these financial gurus have you believe, especially in this inflated economy, if you know what I'm saying. But it's better than not saving money. So that's a pro. Another pro of this is better productivity. I run a business, I'm constantly working out, I've got a demanding lifestyle, right? I like to do certain things, I like to be on point, I like to be on edge. I have to be if I'm going to run and scale this business, manage a team, and do all this stuff effectively every single day, typically 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And so the result of this is, again, before thinking, well, caffeine's gonna help me operate better, it was actually a detriment over the long long term. Whereas now my productivity, as a result of the energy and the sleep and all these factors that are improved by getting off caffeine, is skyrocketing. I've never been this productive in my entire life, and I'm not going to credit it all to caffeine. Of course, there's other things I've done along the process, which I'll share with you in other videos, but I can tell you that getting off the caffeine and noticing those benefits definitely had a direct impact for the better. And I guess the last iteration of a benefit which I notice is the fact that you are just simply not dependent on something anymore. Look, the more crutches you rely on, the more things you are dependent on to do other things, the lower likelihood of you actually executing on those things you need to execute on consistently, right? So if you need caffeine to execute your job effectively or to work out, the times that perhaps you don't have access to it, can't consume it in time, whatever the case is, forgot to grab it, you're going to be worse in that scenario. And that seems like a huge limitation that's self-imposed that you can avoid entirely. So the fact that I am not dependent on that, and I've removed another obstacle that has kept me from being consistent in certain areas previously, now it's just easier to be consistent. I don't need to go through an extra step to complete the things I need to complete. So I think that that's worth mentioning on its own. But before I get to the conclusion, because it's not all, I'm not alienating, or I don't hate on caffeine and coffee whatsoever. I'm going to give you that conclusion shortly, but I'll give you a couple of downsides that you're probably thinking of. Well, what about this? What about that? A few downsides I noticed. They are all short term, but they exist nonetheless. The first, sure, maybe you like the taste, the smell, you like the action of doing it. That is fair, I understand, and I did as well. Again, it's all a mental thing, and yeah, you'll still miss that sometimes. But again, it's a short-term pleasure that if you give it up for the long-term benefits that I outlined previously, it's well worth it. And that sort of piggybacks into the next point, is the fact that it's just kind of more fun. Drinking caffeine all the time is more fun, I'm gonna admit, but again, fun in the short term, not so fun down the line when you start hitting a wall, not seeing the effects, drinking 3, 4, 5 coffees a day just to get to where you used to be to drink one. By the way, that does lead me into one other benefit I do want to mention, is the fact that now if I drink caffeine, I'll drink it, say, at times where I'm really low on sleep or I really feel like the boost can help, but it's once in a while. Two good things come from that. It's not going to destroy all the long-term benefits from before, but secondly, I'm actually going to feel an insane effect. I'm going tunnel vision, just like that first time when I was 16, I'm going tunnel vision. So that's another benefit. So that's pretty much it. The conclusion here is the following. I will not be getting back on caffeine regularly, probably ever again. As far as I see no reason to do so, as I have felt 10 times better. And I will say this, ever since I got off the caffeine, it was a year since I posted that previous video. I stayed off for an entire year. I went a month, I loved it, stayed off for a year. But ever since then, I've been off YouTube for the last 9 months or so. Over several of those months, I got back into the regular coffee routine because I figured, hey, what's the big deal, right? I didn't realize that it was that big of a deal. Since I got back on it, slowly started getting addicted again, sleep started suffering, energy suffering, all these things without me realizing. I got back off. I've been clean for, multiple months now, clean. But the point is I've been clean off caffeine for a couple months now, and it's only further solidified the fact that it directly correlates to and impacts all of the points that I've mentioned to you so far in this video. So for those reasons, I don't see myself getting back on caffeine routinely. Again, I have no problem using it every now and again if I have to get 2 hours of sleep because there's some sort of emergency or something happens. This is bound to happen at some point. I'm totally fine with that. Maybe I have some on the go, I go buy a coffee. When I drink that, I'm gonna go beast mode for like 4 hours and then I'm gonna crash, but it'll be fun for those 4 hours. So I'm definitely not opposed to having caffeine, but just like any other drug, you should probably moderate its intake and be aware as to exactly how it's manipulating you if it is. If it's not, good for you. You've just watched this entire video through for probably no real benefit to you anyways, but hopefully you watched this video learning something new about it. And if you've been thinking about dropping the caffeine, if you feel like any of the symptoms that I mentioned previously that you might be addicted to it, I'll tell you right now, if you think you're addicted, that's probably another sign that, hey, it's worth a shot. And by the way, I highly recommend it if you couldn't tell by the video. That said, it is 7 p.m. Since I'm not on caffeine, I got plenty of work I can still do. I'm gonna go out later. We're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow. I'm gonna blast the gym. No caffeine. Everybody else in there, oh, I need my pre-workout. Soft. I'm in there blasting 300-pound squats, yawning. So what? I do hope that you found this video helpful, and this has been my experience thus far. I'm curious if you have done it, if you just started, are you thinking about doing it? Any of that stuff, let me know in the comments below, and I look forward to having a conversation with you there. Aside from that, like I said, hope you found the video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you. Expect new videos coming soon, and that's it. I'll see you at the top.